The alien Armada appeared at the edge of the Sol system like a dark storm swallowing stars. More than 8,000 warships drifted out of folded space in perfect formation. Each vessel was a moving fortress, layered in energy armor and ancient alloys. Their engines bent gravity itself. Their weapons had erased civilizations whose names no longer existed anywhere in the universe. This was the Calith Ascendancy, a coalition of conquerors who believed survival belonged only to those strong enough to take it. Supreme Commander Zarven Thalos stood at the center of his flagship's command sphere, his many-jointed limbs resting calmly at his sides. He had overseen the fall of 32 star nations. He had never lost a campaign. Before him floated a projection of Earth. A small blue world. Fragile. Loud with radio noise. Full of life that did not yet understand how small it truly was. "Confirm boundary crossing," Zarven said. "Yes, Commander," replied the navigation corps. "We have passed the marked exclusion perimeter." Zarven felt satisfaction ripple through his neural crest. Legends spoke of this system. Stories whispered by old empires and cautious elders. Tales of a forbidden line that should not be crossed. Zarven had never feared stories. Scan for defenses. The response came instantly. No active planetary shields. No interstellar fleet detected. No weapons capable of threatening ascendancy vessels. The bridge hummed with approval. "So this is the species that frightens the galaxy," Zarven said. "They do not even hide." Far below, on Earth, humanity watched. In underground chambers, orbital stations, deep-sea bunkers, and silent observatories, human leaders did not panic. They did not shout. They did not pray. They prepared to wait. Dr. Elena Rourke stood in a dimly lit control room beneath the Antarctic ice. The artifact chamber stretched before her, smooth, black, and impossibly vast. No seams. No markings. No visible power source. It had been there before humanity learned to make fire. They called it the Sentinel. Every attempt to dig deeper had failed. Every attempt to move it had ended with tools melting or time simply stopping around the object. It never spoke. It never explained. But it had always reacted when Earth was threatened. "Ascendancy fleet confirmed inside the boundary," Elena said quietly. Around her, scientists and military observers remained calm. "Do we activate?" someone asked. Elena shook her head. "We never activate it. We only survive long enough for it to notice." In orbit, Earth satellites continued transmitting. Civilian traffic continued. Cities glowed peacefully in the night. This confused Zarven. "No response?" he asked. "No surrender message," an officer replied. "No fleet movement." Zarven leaned forward. "Then we proceed." The Ascendancy fleet advanced. And behind them, space moved. Not exploded. Not collapsed. It shifted, like reality inhaling. Stars behind the Armada stretched into thin lines. Sensors began returning contradictory data. Distance measurements stopped agreeing with themselves. "Commander," said the navigation corps, its voice suddenly distorted, "spatial constants are destabilizing." Zarven felt the first flicker of unease. On Earth, Elena closed her eyes. "The Sentinel has noticed," she whispered. The first Ascendancy ship disappeared without sound. One moment it existed, engines burning, shields stable. The next, it simply wasn't there. No explosion. No debris. No energy spike. Just absence. "Report." Zarven demanded. The command sphere filled with alarms that made no sense. Ships were vanishing at random points in the formation. Sensors showed empty space where massive warships had been millisecunds before. "This is not a weapon," the navigation corps said. "This is a spatial rewrite." Zarven's confidence cracked. "Open fire. Target the planet." Weapons powered up, but never discharged. Time around the fleet slowed unevenly. Some ships experienced seconds that lasted hours. Others jumped forward uncontrollably. On Earth, humanity watched history unfold without lifting a finger. General Marcus Hale, speaking calmly into a recorder, said, "This is why we never chase the stars with arrogance. We learned early that survival sometimes means knowing when not to touch something." The sentinel began to glow, not with light, but with definition. Reality sharpened around it. The artifact wasn't activating. It was correcting. The Ascendancy fleet was not being destroyed. It was being unwritten. Zarven felt his thoughts fragment. His memories flickered. Campaigns he remembered suddenly lacked names. Entire species he had crushed no longer had faces. "What is happening to us?" he screamed. The answer came from everywhere and nowhere. Not a voice. Not words. A law. This region is under observation. Aggression is a failed variable. Reset initiated. One by one, Ascendancy ships faded, not into death, but into never having been. On Earth, Elena wept silently. Not from fear. From relief. Days later, the galaxy noticed something impossible. The Caliph Ascendancy, an empire that had ruled 3 spiral arms, was gone. No ruins. No refugees. No historical records. Only empty territory and confused civilizations asking the same question. Where did they go? The elder observers turned their attention toward Earth. They saw humans still arguing about movies. Still complaining about weather. Still dreaming of the stars. "They live beside a god," one observer said. "No," another replied. "They live beside a mirror." Humanity never built the Sentinel. They never controlled it. They never tried to. They simply learned how to coexist with something greater without provoking it. That was the secret no conqueror understood. Back on Earth, Elena archived the data. "Will it happen again?" a young analyst asked. Elena nodded. "Someone will always cross the line. And us. We'll still be here." Above Earth, the stars returned to normal. The boundary remained invisible. And the universe remembered. Or forgot. Exactly what it was meant to. Centuries later, spacefaring species told stories. Not of war. But of a quiet blue world no empire ever touched. Some said Earth was cursed. Others said it was blessed. A few understood the truth. Humans were not protected because they were strong. They were protected because they learned humility before power. And that terrified the galaxy. Centuries had passed since the Caliph Ascendancy vanished. Humanity had not forgotten the lesson, though the details had faded into legend and myth. Cities stretched across the solar system now, orbital habitats around every major planet, research stations on moons, and deep space outposts scanning the nearby stars. Humans had learned to reach outward, cautiously, carefully, always respectful of the boundaries they did not fully understand. Dr. Ilara Vance, director of the Terra Space Observatory, sat at the heart of the command hub on Ganymede. From here, humanity tracked signals from across the stars, seeking patterns, hoping to meet something new, but not to conquer. Another anomalous reading, Dr. Vance, her assistant reported, pointing at a series of irregular pulses. The signal came from just beyond Proxima Centauri, a repeating pattern, artificial in origin, but unlike anything humans had ever built. Ilara leaned forward, excitement lighting her face. "It's intelligent. Definitely intelligent. Prepare a probe. I want a visual feed before we respond." Meanwhile, aboard a starship far beyond the edge of the solar system, a new species had been watching humans as quietly as humanity had once observed the Sentinel. The Lithari, a curious and cautious alien race with crystalline skin and multifaceted eyes, had never entered human space. Their scouts had noticed the strange artifact on Earth long ago, and they, like others before, had waited. But now, the humans themselves were venturing outward. They were crossing new boundaries, probing new worlds, and their curiosity was unusual. Unlike other species that demanded control, humans observed, calculated, and respected limits. Ilara's probe traveled at near-light speed, carrying cameras and sensors toward the source. The first images arrived as shimmering shapes moving across a nebula. Ships unlike anything in human history, angular, elegant, with surfaces that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid crystal. "They're watching us," Ilara said softly, almost to herself. She could feel it, not fear, but a sense of mutual curiosity. And I think they're learning the same thing we've learned. In orbit above Mars, Admiral Ravi Singh, commander of the Terran fleet, convened a council. Humans had grown cautious over centuries. Every species they contacted was treated like a delicate experiment, studied, recorded, and communicated with through observation before dialogue. "Are we ready for first contact?" asked Commander Lila Moreno, who had once trained on Earth's moon during the early interstellar fleet programs. Her tone was calm, but there was a glint of excitement in her eyes. "Not just ready," Singh replied. "We're already part of the story. The aliens didn't erase us. They left us to grow. To show that intelligence isn't measured in weapons, but in creativity, ingenuity, and patience. Now it's our turn to prove it." Ilara's probe reached the alien formation. The Lithorai had been waiting, observing humanity's expansion, and now they moved forward, not in aggression, but in a mirrored curiosity. Their ships shimmered as if acknowledging the probe's presence. Back on Earth, Ilara and her team stared at the monitor, holding their collective breath. A signal came through, not words, not images, but a series of harmonics, complex, layered, like a musical language. Ilara realized they were communicating in a way humans had never tried, through resonance, patterns that conveyed thought rather than sound. "Can anyone decode it?" someone asked. Ilara smiled. "We don't need to decode it. We just need to respond in kind." For weeks, scientists and engineers collaborated, creating patterns, sending pulses of light and sound back to the Lithorai. Slowly, the alien harmonics shifted. Patterns mirrored human signals. Curiosity had met curiosity, and for the first time in millennia, an intelligent species across the stars was not trying to destroy humanity. On the observation deck, Admiral Singh watched the lights of the probe feed. He could see faint ripples in the fabric of space around the alien ships, almost like recognition. He realized humanity had entered a new phase of evolution, not one of conquest, but of mutual understanding. It wasn't just about survival anymore. Humans had learned how to navigate a galaxy of deadly boundaries, respecting the unseen rules of the cosmos. They had survived where countless civilizations had been erased, not through weapons or brute strength, but through wisdom, patience, and ingenuity. The first Lithorai ambassador appeared on the probe's feed, a shifting, crystalline form that refracted light in all directions. It did not speak, but a gentle vibration traveled through the comm system. Humans felt it in their minds as much as their ears, a greeting, cautious but friendly. Ilara's voice shook slightly. "We welcome you." The ripple of light shifted in response, almost like a bow. In that moment, the centuries of fear and mystery evaporated. Humanity was no longer merely protected. They had earned recognition in the galaxy. Admiral Singh exhaled. "We're no longer the species waiting to be tested. We're participants in the galaxy now. And we've already shown the universe something unique, that curiosity, creativity, and courage can survive where brute force cannot." Far from the Sol system, the Lithorai transmitted back a new kind of map, a guide to nearby star systems, safe passageways, and information about species that had once dominated the stars but no longer existed. They had no aggression in their hearts, only respect for a species that had endured impossible odds. For humanity, it was the beginning of a new era. Not a war, not a conquest, but an expansion of imagination and exploration, guided by lessons learned from a planet protected by something far older than humanity itself. In the corridors of the Terran fleet, officers and scientists shared the same thought, quietly but in unison. They had survived because they refused to be afraid of the unknown. They had thrived because they adapted and created instead of destroying. They had entered the stars because they had learned the most important lesson of all: power alone is nothing without curiosity and courage. And as human ships glided past Mars, Jupiter, and beyond, the galaxy began to whisper stories about the blue planet where small species had faced the universe itself, and the universe had paused, watched, and remembered them.